All right, let's jump right in. When you think of a hospital, what comes to mind? Probably a place of healing, right? The ultimate safe space. But behind those sterile walls, they're actually incredibly complex places, especially in a country like India, where the healthcare system is growing so fast. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at some of the hidden dangers that might be lurking inside. Yeah, it's a pretty jarring thought, isn't it? A place of healing or a hidden threat? I mean, we literally trust these places with our lives. And because of that trust, it's so important that we understand the kinds of hazards that could put both patients and the staff at risk. Look, this isn't about scaring anyone. It's really just about being aware. And this is not just some theoretical exercise. A recent fire at a government hospital in Jaipur, it was just a tragic, devastating event. And it's a powerful reminder of exactly what's at stake here. Things like this really drive home a critical point. These hidden dangers can have catastrophic consequences. And the toughest part, a lot of them are preventable. So, when we say threats, what are we actually talking about? Well, it's not just one thing. It's a whole spectrum of different hazards, and a lot of them are just part of the day-to-day routine of a hospital. Let's dig in and break them down. Okay, look at this list. You've got everything from biological and chemical hazards to fire safety and even psychosocial stress. What's really fascinating is you can kind of split these into two camps. First, you have the big dramatic threats, right? A fire, for example. But then you have what you might call the slow burn risks. And these are way more subtle. We're talking about the crushing stress that leads to staff burnout, or the constant strain from not having enough people on a shift. These things build up quietly, day after day, until, boom, they hit a breaking point. And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. Hidden hazards can have severe consequences if left unchecked. The really important words there, hidden and unchecked. Because we're not always talking about something obvious. It's often those slow burn problems, the ones that get ignored or just accepted as the way things are, that end up causing the most harm. Okay, let's put a real number on this to make it sink in. Think about biological hazards. A study in a South Indian hospital found that 12% of healthcare workers got a needle stick injury in a single year. That is a huge number. And it just goes to show how something that's a routine part of the job can suddenly become a very serious, very personal risk for the people trying to care for us. So here's the takeaway. Some of the most dangerous threats are the ones that just fade into the background. Old wiring in the walls, maybe some gaps in disaster training, but the big one, chronic staff shortages. Think about it. A nurse who's overworked, totally burned out, they're just more likely to make a mistake. And that's how a hidden staffing problem becomes a very real danger for a patient. Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom. It absolutely doesn't have to be this way. There's a really powerful tool, a sort of safety shield, if you will, that can completely change the game. It helps a hospital shift from just reacting to problems to actually getting ahead of them. And that tool is called risk assessment. And this chart lays out the choice perfectly. It's basically two different paths you can take. Go down the path of inaction, and you're looking at fines, burned out staff leaving, and a reputation that's in the gutter. But choose the proactive path, you get compliance with standards like those from NABH, that's India's top accreditation board for hospitals, you keep your good staff, and you build trust with patients. At the end of the day, it's not just about safety, it's just good business. And frankly, it's the right thing to do. All right, so we get why this is so important. The big question is how? How does a hospital actually do a risk assessment? It might sound like this super complicated bureaucratic thing, but it's not. The whole process can be broken down into a pretty straightforward blueprint. Let's walk through it. The official name for this is HERA. That stands for Hazard Identification and Risk Assessment. And really, it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's just a systematic, step-by-step way to find the hazards, figure out how big a risk they are, and then come up with a solid plan to keep them under control. And it really boils down to these three core steps. Step one, identify the hazards. And you don't just sit in an office and guess, you dig into past incident reports, you walk around the hospital, and most importantly, you talk to the staff, the doctors, the nurses, the cleaners. They know where the real problems are. Step two, evaluate the risk. Because not all hazards are created equal, right? You use a simple grid, a risk matrix, to figure out which things are most likely to happen and which will cause the most damage. That tells you what to fix first. And finally, step three, plan your action. Write it all down, make someone responsible for fixing it, and give them a deadline. Simple as that.
So having a great plan on paper is awesome. But we all know that putting it into practice is the real challenge. So this last part is all about that. How do you take this plan and turn it into a real, living, breathing culture of safety that actually protects people?
This comparison just perfectly sums up the two mindsets. The old school, reactive way, you basically wait for an accident to happen, and then the first thing you do is try to figure out who's to blame. The proactive way is the total opposite. You're always on the lookout for risks, and your whole focus is on prevention and improvement. It's a huge shift, moving away from a blame game and towards a culture that's always getting better. And here are some real, tangible things we're talking about. It means installing modern fire alarms and sprinklers, and this is the crucial part, actually maintaining them. It means running regular fire drills so it becomes muscle memory for everyone. It's also about the simpler stuff, like giving nurses the right equipment to move patients without hurting their own backs. And it's about looking after the staff's mental health to fight that burnout we talked about. And, modern technology can be a total game changer here. Just imagine little IoT sensors that can detect a tiny leak in an oxygen system in real time, or using data to predict when a critical piece of equipment is about to fail before it breaks down in an emergency. This is the kind of stuff that lets hospitals get way ahead of problems in a way they just couldn't before. Now, if you're a hospital administrator, this chart right here is for you. Because investing in safety, it's not a cost, it's an investment. And it has a massive return. Look, the biggest chunk is just pure cost savings from preventing accidents in the first place. But on top of that, it helps with regulatory compliance, it helps you keep your best people, it protects your hospital's good name, and it just makes everything run more efficiently. But let's be realistic for a minute. This isn't always easy to pull off. Hospitals, especially in places like India, are often dealing with tight budgets and, just a natural resistance to doing things differently. So what's the solution? Well, number one, you absolutely have to have support from the very top. Leadership has to be on board. After that, you don't have to boil the ocean. You can do it in phases. Start with the biggest, scariest risks first, get some wins, and build momentum. So we end right back where we started, with that big question. But now it's for you to think about. We've seen the risks, we've walked through the roadmap to make things safer. The most important thing to remember is that proactive safety isn't a one-and-done thing. It's not a destination you arrive at, it's a constant journey. So the real question is your hospital prepared? Is it doing everything it can to find that next hidden threat before it's too late?